do you look at the Eagles and you say, you know what? Yeah, it's great to, at least when you look at football, the age-old adage is true. Defense wins championships, and the Lions have, I think, pretty much secured one side of the ball when you look at offensively. If you just upgrade, to me, the defense, the defensive line, you get improvements and growth in the secondary. You have great players at linebacker and at safety. If you shore up that one position at defensive line, I believe that there's a great opportunity for the Detroit Lions to kind of be right back in there in the mix in the NFC.
Oh, no doubt about it. I think that, as the Super Bowl as a whole, I loved, right? Because I had Chiefs fatigue. Like I was done with Travis Kelce. I was over Patrick Mahomes. I didn't need to see Taylor Swift. I didn't need to hear Brittany Mahomes. Like all of that stuff I was good on. And I don't know necessarily why I felt that way, because I didn't feel that way when the Patriots were, in their, 20-year reign of terror across the NFL. Maybe it's social media, maybe it's the way that life has evolved here, so maybe that plays a role in it. I'm not too sure. But I think that when you look at how Philadelphia was able to handle things defensively, obviously they get a big pick six from Cooper DeJean. That was sensational. But you talked about it, defense wins championships. It's the fundamental aspect of football. So as much as offenses can change, and we can throw hook and ladders all day, and we can have Penei Sewell throwing passes, and we can run shovel, like reverse shovel passes, and do all of this fun stuff. If you can't control the line of scrimmage, you can't control the game. And Philly really highlighted this, because I'm a firm believer of, you got to be able to get to the quarterback with four. And they did that for 4 quarters, and they did it relentlessly, to the point where Patrick Mahomes, who is arguably the best quarterback in the NFL to date, looked so uncomfortable. And for the first time in a long time, at least the first time I can remember, he had happy feet back there. He was looking in anticipating pressure. In the Eagles defense, when you can bring four and drop seven, you can do it in a myriad of different fashions. The fact that they were able to get 6 sacks and 11 quarterback hits or something like that off the top of my head, with only bringing 4 guys, I mean, that just shows the rest of the league the vital importance of being able to win one-on-one matchups at the line of scrimmage. Can you scheme your D line to do enough that it provides them some opportunity? But then also, the X's and the O's versus the Jimmy and the Joes, right? You have to have those horses. And for a comparison standpoint, and all Lions fans know this, when you take Aidan Hutchinson off the field, the guy who is going to be a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year, I mean, he had 7.5 sacks, and I think as a team, we might have had 29-ish, give or take, for the entirety of the campaign, without having it right in front of me. So I think that when you look at the impact that that one guy can have, if you can pair that with some more pressure on the other edge. And I look back to the season, like I'm wondering about James Houston, right? What happened there? We saw him in his freshman campaign pin his ears back and get 8.5 sacks or whatever it was. And then there's the little bit of movement where they're going to try to, tinker around and see, does he work as a linebacker? And then that experiment didn't necessarily work. He gets injured, and he never got back to form. You look at John Kaminsky, a guy who played with oven mitts on his hands 2 years ago. He broke both his hands. He's running around there, sock 'em boppers, right? And it's like, okay, you lose him in training camp. All right. Then you lose Aidan Hutchinson. And then Aleem McNeil goes down to a torn knee. So we're going to have to wait on him to see at what point he will be back to 100%. And it's like, man, the guys that they were able to pick up, Zadarius Smith, Muhammad was great as well. They had some impact guys there. What did you get out of Josh Pascal, Levi Onwuzurike trying to get back to health? Because I look at the Super Bowl, and, when Tampa Bay won it a couple of years ago with Tom Brady, the one thing that really stuck out to me is that their linebackers ran really well sideline to sideline. They tracked the football and they tackled it. Well, I feel like, okay, Derek Barnes, another injury, which I'm still upset at the Arizona Cardinals. I thought that was a cheap shot. I thought that the tight end feints high, goes low at the last minute, and it cost Derek Barnes a season. I'm a big believer in Derek Barnes, a guy that you can see coaching and development in real time and the impact he was having. Another guy, impact guy, comes in off the bench, doesn't matter, can play special teams. Malcolm Rodriguez. Sure, he was a hard knocks darling, right? And they draft linebacker, and you see a guy who, did it affect him? It probably did, right? He probably had those moments like, okay, why wasn't my season good enough? But every time his number was called, that dude answered the bell until he gets hurt, right? And so I'm looking at the Super Bowl trying to find ways to evaluate what are other teams really doing and what are they really good at. Philadelphia was really good at running the ball. They tried relentlessly with Saquon. He had 25 carries and 70 some yards. It's not like he was he was a killer back there, but they hit some, some deep strikes. They did some good things on offense. But for me, that MVP award goes to the defensive line. They should have just brought the whole D line up there and said, here you go. Here's your trophy. We'll get you a couple more copies of it so everyone can have one for the living room, because that's what I want to see out of our Detroit Lions. We talk about complementary football all the time. Your defense has to complement your offense to your special teams, and so on and so forth. Well, complementary football works on one side of the football as well. If your D line is getting to the quarterback, that means you can drop more into coverage. And if your D line is getting to the quarterback, your guys don't have to cover as long, right? It gives your back end more opportunities. And when you got guys like Brian Branch, who, he makes the pick six in his first game in Kansas City, and I'm like, this is something different here. We got a different kind of player here. Kirby Joseph, I mean, talk about coaching and development. My goodness, leads the NFL in interceptions. The heck with the Pro Bowl. Let's get him an all pro. You have very capable players there in that back end. You can help them out if you can apply pressure to the quarterback, and vice versa, right? They don't have to cover as long if you get to the quarterback. You're giving your D line more opportunities if you're covering really well to let that clock run a little bit. So it's interesting. A lot of good lessons there. But Philadelphia is a team in the NFC, man. I don't know if they're going anywhere anytime soon, much like Washington.